Following Biggie's murder in 1997, numerous jailhouse informants came forward with claims about who had committed the crime. And the one that would get the most attention was from an inmate named Michael Robinson, who, even though he was a schizophrenic, convicted murderer, would become the foundation of the Detective Russell Poole theory that an LAPD officer and his friend had murdered Biggie. But Michael Robinson's statement, which you will hear in this episode for yourself, has been wildly misrepresented by Russell Poole and others over the years. Even after we put segments of this interview into the Murder Rap documentary 6 years ago, Poole's friends and collaborators have continued to pretend that this recording doesn't even exist. And when you hear it, you'll know exactly why. At the time that Michael Robinson gave this statement, where he allegedly named Biggie's killer, he was in the LA County Jail in Castaic with another man named Waymond Anderson. Anderson had been a singer in the 80s whose cover of My Girl for Capitol Records had been a minor hit. But then a few years later, Anderson was convicted of a 1993 arson murder for a fire in a drug den behind this apartment building near USC's campus that killed a person. Anderson got life in prison for it. And he's come forward himself with some wild tales over the years about the murders of both Tupac and Biggie, even though he'd been in jail for years by the time of the murders. Anderson would claim that Michael Robinson got some of his information from him while they were housed together in the same unit in jail. The statement given by Michael Robinson in 1997 would form the foundation for Russell Poole's entire theory that LAPD officer David Mack had conspired with a friend named Amir Muhammad to kill Biggie. Amir Muhammad was a mortgage broker living in the San Diego area at the time. He had been college friends with David Mack. When David Mack went to jail for a bank robbery, Amir Muhammad visited him in jail. And this visit, combined with what Michael Robinson would say in his interview, would make Amir Muhammad Russell Poole's prime suspect for the next 2 decades. Without Michael Robinson, Poole's theory never exists. In April of 1997, just a few weeks after Biggie's murder, Waymond Anderson had come forward with a claim that Suge Knight had approached him in jail about the Biggie murder. A claim that was later disproven by the fact that he and Suge were never together at the inmate reception center in LA like he'd claimed. 3 months later, on July 10th, 1997, Michael Robinson then stepped forward and took his shot. Michael Robinson was interviewed by RHD Detective Ball and an LA Sheriff Sergeant named Valdemar. And this interview is, frankly, bananas.
July 10, 1997, the time is approximately 14:10 hours. My name is Detective Ted Ball, B-A-L-L. My number is 17549 from Marauder Homicide Division. This is a tape-recorded interview with Michael Robinson. Is it R-O-B-I-N-S-O-N, Michael?
Yes.
And your date of birth?
11/24/57.
11/24/57. Your booking number?
591.
Excuse me, could it be 15109?
Yes, that's
019.
019.
Okay, and that's what's on your wrist?
Yeah.
Okay, also in attendance at this interview is a LASO Sergeant, Richard Valdemar.
In 2002, a book about Russell Poole's theory came out called Labyrinth, followed a couple years ago by a follow-up book called Dead Wrong. And that second book claims that Sergeant Valdemar, who was one of Robinson's handlers as an informant, and who was in this interview with the RHD detective, was actually asked to leave the room as soon as he introduced Detective Ball to Robinson. And that because Valdemar was asked to leave, it's implied that we couldn't be certain that the detective's account of what Robinson said was accurate. But as you just heard in the first clip, the detective introduces Valdemar on tape at the beginning of the interview, and the recording never shows him asking Valdemar to leave. And there is a third voice in the room chiming in throughout this interview. And again, we don't have to take the detective's word about what Robinson said, because it was taped. Is this the tape that Russell Poole didn't want us to hear because he was the one that misrepresented what was said on it? 5.5 minutes into this interview, we get to why we're here. This is the Russell Poole Theory's big moment. Michael Robinson is going to tell us firmly and without a doubt the name of Biggie's killer. And that person is... well, he can't actually remember. In fact, the detective has to remind him of the name of his own suspect.
Tell me what you know about the Biggie case.
The dude name is Abraham. I can't say his name. It's Arab name.
Okay, who's the dude? Who are you talking about?
His name. I told you his name yesterday. I can't. I don't read right, so.
Okay, so this is the man you're describing here.
Yes.
Is the killer.
Yes.
Okay, you know him as Abraham?
Abraham, or I told you the name yesterday. A name, Arab name.
Okay, you told me yesterday the name of Amir.
Amir.
Amir?
Yeah. Ashmir or Amir. It's an Arab name.
Ashmir,
Yeah.
or Amir.
Yeah.
Wow. A man was accused of murder over this? A man's life was nearly ruined? Over that? This has to be one of the shakiest witness IDs in the history of law enforcement. It's clear to me that Poole's star witness, who started this whole thing, clearly doesn't really know the guy's name. The detective has to tell him. Is this tape real? Are these actors? Is this hour-long interview where he talks about not only this murder, but a whole totally unrelated, old unsolved murder of a police officer from years earlier? Can you tell me if this hour-long interview with their star witness is fake? Because they act like this tape doesn't even exist. According to the Dead Wrong book, Michael Robinson stated later, under oath, that the only name he gave Detective Ball in this interview was Amir. Well, that's a lie. You just heard it for yourself. So Michael Robinson lied about this under oath. So let's see what else he says. Robinson claims to have known Biggie's killer for years.
How long would you say you have known this man?
About 5 years, 10 years, maybe longer, 12.
He's then asked to describe this Abraham, Ashmir, or Amir person.
Hey, did you know this man?
Yes.
Have you ever seen him?
Yes.
What's he described as?
About 6'1", maybe 6'2".
Male, black, white?
Black.
How much does he weigh?
So about 220, 230.
Well, Russell Poole's Amir Muhammad was 5'11" and 180 pounds. So the description doesn't match at all. Robinson is describing a big guy, but Amir Muhammad is medium-sized. The age he gives for this guy is also completely off.
About how old is he?
I'll say about 29, 30.
Amir Muhammad would have been 37 at the time of this interview, only 2 years younger than Michael Robinson. He wasn't 29 or 30. Robinson then claims that Amir lives near Greenleaf and Johnson in Compton.
Do you know where he lives?
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly where it is. I know the house is out there. He'd be over there off of Greenleaf and off of Johnson.
Well, Greenleaf and Johnson don't intersect, they run parallel. But Johnson Street doesn't go very far, so we can see that Robinson is describing the area near Southside Crips neighborhood in Compton, just on the western edge of it. These streets to the east, Burris, Mayo, these are Southside Crip streets. That's their park, South Park. And a few minutes later, Robinson claims that the guy's birth name, before he converted to Islam, was either Kenny or Kiki.
Do you know what they used to call him when he was a Southsider?
Might be Kenny or Kiki or something like that. I don't know the guy. Kiki or something like that.
First, he couldn't remember the guy's Muslim name, and now he can't remember the guy's birth name. Also, did you notice that the detective referred to this individual as a Southsider, meaning Southside Crip, and Robinson didn't correct him?
When he was a Southsider?
Might be Kenny or...
Well, a few minutes earlier, Robinson had confirmed that the guy he's talking about was a Southside Crip.
So, at one point he was associated with either the
Southsiders.
Southsiders.
Yeah.
Now, Wayman Anderson would claim later that when Robinson first approached him in jail, that Robinson had overheard Anderson talking about a man named Keefe D. And Keefe D was a shot caller for the Southside Crips, so the same neighborhood that Robinson's trying to say this guy lives in. And now Robinson is telling police that he thinks the shooter's non-Muslim name is either Kenny or Kiki. That sounds a lot like Keefe. Keefe's name was associated with the Biggie case from the beginning because the Southside Crips were one of the groups rumored to have been responsible, and because Keefe was at the party the night Biggie was killed and had talked to him at his table. And these rumors about the Southside Crips are all over the streets when Robinson gives this statement. So Robinson is now throwing in elements of a completely different theory into this statement by making this Amir character a Southside Crip and then confusing him with Keefe. And this right here really shows you how complicated and nuanced this case is, and how if you don't know the backgrounds of the major players, you can take a few loose details from the case files and make a really big mess of things. Regardless, whoever the shooter is, Robinson's saying he knows this guy. He's telling you that Biggie's killer is a Compton street gangster who came up in the hood. He's from Compton. That is not Amir Muhammad, who grew up in Virginia and went to college in Oregon and was married and living in the San Diego area and working as a mortgage broker. But let's keep going. So, why does Michael Robinson keep struggling to get the information right about this guy that he's supposedly known for years? I think it's because he's just repeating rumors, and he's repeating nonsense that Wayman Anderson has told him. And why is he struggling to remember this information? Didn't he at least run back to his cell and write it down so he'd remember it? Well, there's a good reason why he didn't.
I don't know how to read and write, so I have to try to remember everything was being said, because I don't remember everything exactly because I don't read and write.
Robinson is illiterate, so he can't write it down. And I also think that Robinson slipped up here. I think he's also admitting that this statement he's making isn't based on things that he's experienced himself firsthand.
I have to try to remember everything was being said, because I don't remember everything exactly because I don't read and write.
He's admitting that because he can't read or write, this is stuff that he's had to memorize from someone else, and that's why he's having trouble. Now that I think of it, didn't we hear him use the same excuse before? That he can't remember something important because he can't read and write. When did he say that? Oh yeah.
Abraham, I can't say his name. It's Arab name.
Okay, who's the dude? Who are you talking about?
His name, I'll tell you his name yesterday. I can't, I don't read and write, so.
You see what I see, right? Remember, Robinson has been asked twice now if he knew this guy, and both times he indicated yes.
How long would you say you have known this man?
About 5 years, 10 years, maybe longer, 12.
Hey, did you know this man?
Yes.
So then why would he need to write down the guy's name to remember it? Michael Robinson never knew a killer named Amir. He was just repeating another random name that was floating around out there. And that's why he couldn't remember the name at the top of the interview. It's not something he'd lived, it's because he couldn't write it down when he heard it. Now the detective quizzes Robinson on the details of the murder to see if he knows the basics of what happened. And Robinson fails miserably.
How was Biggie killed?
I heard somebody just walk by and shot him in his truck 5 or 6 times through the door of the truck or something.
How was he killed?
Just heard he shot, they went by, shot by with a machine gun or something.
Shot?
Shot.
What caliber gun?
I heard a machine gun. Could have been a Woody or a Tech 9, I don't know. So he was shot in his own machine gun.
How did the guy get away? Did you ever hear anything about that?
Then he ran around the corner and got in a limo or a truck or something, drove off.
Let me ask you this, do you know where Biggie was killed?
No, like I said, I don't read, none of that type of stuff. No.
Okay.
So he thinks Biggie was killed by someone on foot, which is wrong. It was actually a drive-by shooting, everyone knows this. He claims Biggie was shot by a machine gun. No, it was a semi-automatic handgun. He claims the guy got away by running around the corner and hopping into a limo or a truck. And he has no idea where Biggie was even killed, other than that it was somewhere in Los Angeles. It's possible that in July of 1997, when this interview took place, that Michael Robinson knew less about Biggie's murder than just about anybody in the United States. So this is the guy who cracks the case open for Russell Poole? This guy? And Robinson wasn't the only jailhouse informant coming forward with bad information in the weeks and months following Biggie's murder. According to Kelly Cooper, an LAPD detective who originally worked the case for Wilshire Division, tons of inmates were coming forward with bogus information.
We were getting phone calls for all kind of inmates who had all the answers to everything. They witnessed all the days in prison. They knew everything. I don't care if the informers, the inmates, or whatever, they got access to the media. And a big case like this, everybody's watching this. So now you got to run over there and interview this inmate who just got the information from the media. So you run in circles. But once you realize what he said is garbage, it's garbage. Just let it go. You don't pursue garbage. You're wasting your time.
Now let's rewind and get back to this limo that Robinson claims the shooter escaped in. In his description of this Ashmir or Amir person, Robinson claims that the guy is known for cruising around Compton in a white stretch limo.
Do you know what kind of car that this Ashmir drives?
White stretch limo.
In fact, after saying that he thought the shooter escaped in a limo, the detective asked Robinson if he's just saying that because he knows this guy drives around in one. And Robinson admits that, yeah, he just made that up, that the guy escaped in a limo because the guy he's thinking of drives one.
Think back, once you think back, Michael, if there's any specific car that anybody that you've talked to has told you that the guy got into, or are you just thinking that it might be a limo because you know this Ashmir has a limo?
I'm thinking it might be a limo because do have a limo.
So, there was a well-known figure in Compton at this time named Stutterbox. And we know that Robinson had heard of Stutterbox because he mentions him in this interview twice.
Stutterbox, I told him yesterday.
And?
Well, Stutterbox could have been there. Stutterbox and Ice Cube.
So Robinson is saying that Biggie's shooter drives a white stretch limo and his name is possibly Amir. Well, Stutterbox was known for driving around Compton in a white Rolls Royce, and Stutterbox's alias was Amir Muhammad. I should mention that Robinson never said the name Muhammad in this interview. He only gave potential first names, one of like 5 that he gave. So it's a coincidence that Stutterbox's alias is the exact same first and last name as the guy that Russell Poole spent nearly 20 years of his life accusing. But the fact that Robinson knew who Stutterbox was, claimed that the shooter had the same alias that Stutterbox had of Amir, and that he drove around in a white limo that he could easily be confusing for Stutterbox's white Rolls, I think Robinson is just throwing together information about multiple people from the streets of Compton, and he's combining it all into one person in this word salad of a statement. And none of it matches the Amir Muhammad that Russell Poole went after. Poole took one of 5 names that Robinson listed, completely ignored literally every other thing Robinson said in this interview about who this guy was, and put the whole case on some random guy named Amir because he visited David Mack in prison. And Amir is a common name. If you Google it, you get 124 million results. There are probably millions of people named Amir. If years later, Robinson said, oh yeah, it was definitely a guy named Amir Muhammad, after he's gotten out and it's been in the media, then those statements are of no evidentiary value because he didn't say it in this first interview. So this is why I get so annoyed when someone tries to tell me that this is the guy who did it, because Russell Poole could have picked a name out of a hat and it would have the same credibility. And this guy, Amir Muhammad, has had to deal with this nonsense for nearly a quarter of a century. His name got published in the LA Times as a suspect based on this? Now I know that there are people who support Russell Poole who aren't going to like this. but I'm showing you the actual evidence that his theory is based on. So don't shoot the messenger. This is who he relied on. He participated in multiple books, at least 2 or 3 documentaries, multiple newspaper articles. Did he ever release Michael Robinson's taped interview like I am here? Did he even share this recording with the reporters and authors and filmmakers that he worked with? Or did everyone just take his word about what it said? So, if Michael Robinson was such a terrible informant in this case who didn't really know any of the details, how did he get dragged back into this story? Well, first of all, Poole kept pushing this theory. As I said, he went to the press, he did books and film projects, and then Biggie's estate filed 2 wrongful death lawsuits, spaced apart by a couple of years, against the city of LA based on Poole's theory that David Mack had been part of Biggie's murder while he was an officer with the LAPD. And the first lawsuit ended in a mistrial in 2005, and the second one was dismissed in 2010. So now's a good time to remind you that Michael Robinson's street name was Psycho Mike. And as we said before, Robinson was a schizophrenic, by his own admission, since childhood. So Michael Robinson goes in to give a deposition for the Biggie Estates lawsuit, and according to the LA Times, he ends up admitting that his previous statement was based on hearsay, and that he didn't know what the Amir person looked like. And when he'd been shown a photo 6-pack that included a photo of Amir Muhammad, where he'd circled half the photos, including Amir, he admitted that he had just guessed. And again, he circled half the photos. He had a 50-50 chance of getting the guy. But the problem for Michael Robinson is that by now things have snowballed. He's in over his head. He told a dumb lie almost a decade earlier, and some people believed it, and now he's in the middle of a $400 million lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. And all he can do is keep lying, so he claims he never said any other names other than Amir in the interview from '97, and that Detective Ball lied about it and said he said all these other names. So he's lying in this depot, and it's not going well. And in the middle of this deposition, Michael Robinson supposedly has a meltdown, flees the deposition, flees the building, and runs onto the nearby freeway into oncoming traffic. Robinson survived the freeway incident, but would die a year later from natural causes. But fleeing a deposition and running headlong into freeway traffic is how Russell Poole, star witness, who was clearly lying from the very beginning, ended his part in this whole circus. The Labyrinth book with Poole called this interview with Robinson perhaps the best clue received by detectives involved in the Smalls murder investigation. Really. Imagine if Poole had told the truth. Like, well, there's this convicted murderer who's mentally ill and who was in jail 40 miles away at the time of Biggie's murder, and he got every detail about the murder wrong, and he seems really unsure about what the suspect's name is, and the detective interviewing him had to even remind him what it was. And then he gave us 5 first names, and a few of them are really common, but I think it's this mortgage broker who lives 120 miles away, but was moonlighting as a Southside Crip assassin and was hanging out in Compton in his stretch limousine. Rolling Stone journalists don't write books about you, and Johnny Depp doesn't play you in a movie if you say that. So I think he just lied by omission. He ignored everything Michael Robinson said in 1997, except for one name, which he then took completely out of context and applied it to the wrong person, and hoped the public never heard what you all just heard. I know that there are different theories behind this case, and people are passionate about their theories, and it can be tough to know who to trust. But I know who I definitely don't trust. I don't trust Michael Robinson. I think Michael Robinson was exploited. And you're free to disagree with me. But at least now you have the actual evidence in front of you, and not other people's false representations about what Michael Robinson actually said.